Now let's discuss about the single vendor or multi-vendor approach when it comes to zero trust implementation. Let's explore this important strategic decision in zero trust. Whether an organization implements zero trust using a single vendor or go for a multi-vendor, that is the question that touches the architecture, operations, and long-term flexibility. And the answer is not always obvious. Uh, Zero trust is not just about the technology, it's a whole framework of policies, continuous verification, and enforcement across identity, network, endpoint, data. So, your choice of vendor affects how fast you can deploy zero trust, how consistent your policies are across applications, across devices, how easily you can integrate new technologies in the future, your operational complexity and support overhead. So these are all the important factors which affects the vendor choice. Now, single vendor approach, that's my preference or my recommendation to start with. The single vendor approach means relying primarily on one vendor's ecosystem for most or all zero trust pillars: identity, access, endpoint, and network. Some of the advantages: uh, tight integration, native communication between the components, unified logging, easier policy enforcement, simplified operations. When I say simplified operations, that means one console, one support team, because of the common one platform, consistent identity and posture management. So these are some of the advantages when it comes to single vendor approach. Uh, Vendor lock-ins and dependency on one roadmap, that is one of the key disadvantages when it comes to single vendor zero trust approach. Less flexibility to choose specialized tools. Some platforms may not excel equally across all zero trust pillars. For example, let's take an example of Microsoft. uh, Entra ID, Microsoft Defender, Intune, conditional access in Entra ID. These are some of the example stacks of single vendor zero trust implementation. Zscaler with ZIA, which is Zscaler Internet Access, ZPA, Private Access, ZDX, which is the digital experience, ZCC, Zscaler Client Connector. So that's again an example of single vendor zero trust implementation. Palo Alto Networks, Prisma Access, uh, Palo Alto's Cortex XDR, which is their EDR platform, Xor, which is their automation platform, Prisma Cloud Security, which is their cloud security posture management. So this is another example of single vendor zero trust implementation. Yeah, these are some of the examples like I explained before. Uh, Now, multi-vendor approach. The multi-vendor approach uses different vendors for different pillars, and you pick the best tool for the job. Some of the advantages include flexibility to pick advanced solutions in each category, avoid single vendor lock-in, which was a disadvantage in single vendor. So here it's an advantage that you do not have to rely completely on one vendor, so you can completely avoid single vendor lock-in and gain resilience. Accelerated adoption of innovative tools. That's the advantage. Some of the challenges: uh, integration complexity. So you need to connect policies, logs, decisions across platforms, operational overhead, multiple consoles, multiple support teams, and multi-vendor models. So yeah, That's the challenge. And maintaining the consistent policy enforcement across components, it can be tricky. Let's take an example of multi-vendor zero trust implementation approach. So, identity part covered by Okta or Microsoft Entra, policy decision by either Zscaler, ZPA, or Netscope or Palo, policy enforcement point is via the Zscaler client connector. Endpoint protection can be from the best of the breed EDR solutions, CrowdStrike or Sentinel-1. Data protection can be through Microsoft Purview or Netscope DLP, and visibility via Armis or via SIM platform, which is in this case Splunk, and automation through Cortex XOR or ticketing through ServiceNow or the SOAR component of ServiceNow. So that's the example for multi-vendor zero trust implementation. Now, most organizations actually adopt a hybrid approach. They pick an anchor vendor, the main vendor or the core vendor for identity and basic access policies, often the heart of zero trust, and then extend with best of the breed vendors for advanced network access, endpoint, or OT visibility. So this sort of balances the operational simplicity with flexibility and reduces the risk of vendor lock-in while still allowing policy consistency via a SIM or a SOAR integration layer. So recommendations, like I mentioned before, start with a single vendor for faster rollout and policy consistency when it comes to the enforcement. Uh, then that's the early phase when you start with the single vendor. If you are in the growth or in the optimization phase, you can integrate best of the breed tools where the vendor ecosystem is weaker. Uh, and for the matured environments, advanced use cases, multi-vendor with fully integrated zero trust architecture with various API integrations with SIM or SOAR platforms. So always plan for an integration layer early, even if you start with single vendor, because it will save you headaches later on. So these are some of the recommendations uh, for all the different phase types when it comes to zero trust implementation. Now, some of the key takeaways of the session. Uh, so, single vendor, it's simpler, it's faster when it comes to the deployment, but potentially it is less flexible. Multi-vendor approach, it gives you more flexibility, the best of the breed technology, but more complex to operate. And the hybrid approach, which is the most common in practice. So start simple, expand as maturity grows. So these are the key takeaways when it comes to vendor selection or the approach specifically to go for a single vendor approach or a multi vendor or hybrid vendor.